Hello everyone, thank you to have you here and spending your time to attend this session. So today I'll be talking about my experiences of what lessons we learned while migrating from Nintex on-prem to Power Platform. There is Power Automate and Power Apps. So this session is not about which product is better, whether Nintex is better or Power Platform is better, but it is just about like sharing our like the experiences that we learned through the process. And it's not like one product is good and one product is not good. Both products are good. It depends on your scenarios and on what you're trying to achieve, and what product suits your scenario. So it's more about what we learn throughout this process, and I hope you'll get some value out of this session. All right. So today's agenda. So I'll give you a little overview about Nintex and Power Platform and a little bit of comparison of both of the platforms. Then I'll share each lesson learned while we migrated from Nintex on-prem, which had like Nintex on-prem running workflows and forms running in SharePoint environment. And then we had Power Automate and Power Flows, Power Apps created for the same processes in cloud while the customer was moving from SharePoint on-prem to SharePoint online. Then I'll also share some pros and cons, what we thought of are the advantages of this migration, and what we thought could are a little bit of disadvantages or setbacks of this migration. Of course, any tool would have pros and cons. So in same way, we thought some are the advantages and some are the disadvantages. Then I'll also share some inputs on what you should consider while migrating from one tool to another for forms and workflows. So currently, there must be a lot of migration going on, as InfoPath is already like near to obsolete. So Power Apps is a good replacement of InfoPath. So many of the customers or users must be moving from InfoPath to Power Apps. Or like in last year, it was announced that SharePoint designer workflows are also like retiring. So there is also a need of migration from say, SharePoint designer workflows to Power Automate. So like what points you should be considering while doing that kind of migration. So I'll share those points and learnings. All right. So a little bit about me. I know Stefan gave a really good introduction, but still I'll give on my own. So I'm a developer. My background is like developer architect, worked with SharePoint over last 12 plus years. Currently, I'm a tech lead and a partner at Soho Dragon India division. Soho Dragon is a New York-based consulting company. We help our customers to implement Microsoft products. This is my Twitter and my blog. You can read about my Power Automate learnings on my blog, and I'm also a community super user at Flownote for Microsoft Power Automate community. So if you're facing any issues with Power Automate, you can post your questions there, and there is a really good amount of super users in that community, and also some good contributors who can help you through the issues that you are facing with Power Automate. So a little overview about Power Platform and Nintex Office 365 or cloud. So Power Platform has Power Apps, which using which you can create applications, forms, and dashboards. So you can create one application which consists of the listing of records, also dashboards like Power BI reports, and it also can have forms for you to add records and edit the records and do various activities in that application. In same way, Nintex has Nintex Forms application, using which you can create forms for SharePoint lists, or you can also create independent forms. So Power Automate, Power App, and Nintex Forms are kind of a similar application, similar products, but with their own strengths and weaknesses. Same way, Power Platform has Power Automate if you want to implement workflows. So it's a cloud-based workflow engine, and Nintex has Nintex Workflow Engine, which is also a cloud-based workflow engine. So what are the similarities between two of the products? So both have Power Apps and Nintex Forms. Both have browser-based designers, so you can use any modern browser to build the forms using Power Apps and Nintex Forms. Both have like dynamic, responsive, attractive, powerful user interface. So you do just drag and drop and configure the properties of the controls in a form from the browser itself, and they are pretty dynamic and user friendly in both of the products. All right. Both applications have their strengths on connecting to various applications and tools. It's not just limited to like Power Apps is not just limited to Microsoft product family. It can also like connect to other products. For example, you can connect to Dropbox. You can connect to Salesforce. Uh, there are a lot of external applications and tools with using which you can connect your forms in both Nintex and Power Apps. And both of the uh, tools, both of the products work seamlessly using in SharePoint list and libraries. So both have strong connections and strong actions to work with SharePoint list and libraries. All right. So what are the differences between these two products? So Power Apps, it's only a cloud product, whereas Nintex Forms is also available in on-prem as well as cloud. In Power Apps, you have to like in order to implement complex logic, you have to use Excel like formulas. So if you are familiar with using formulas in Excel, then you will be able to pretty easily use the Power Apps formulas to implement the complex logic. Nintex is more about like configuring the settings from the UI rather than using the formula based logic. So it's a little user friendly in that terms. It's just the configuration click 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 in Nintex form. For Power Apps, you can't write JavaScript, but you can always like use external APIs as connection, like custom connectors, and use the external APIs. In Nintex Forms, it supports JavaScript, so you can write JavaScript code in order to modify your form on the fly using the code. In terms of licensing, Power Apps requires license for each user, and on index form licensing works as licensing for apps. So, for example, if you want to do like a license would allow you to like create 10 workflows or 10 forms. So it's a bunch of forms or workflows that you want to create, and Power Apps is more of a user should have a license in order to use it. Power Apps is like a full-fledged product which in which you can do like dashboards, listings, forms. So you can do a standalone application in the Power App. So user doesn't have to navigate to another screen. They can do everything from their Power App screen. Whereas Nintex forms are mostly used like as a replacement of SharePoint forms. So they use the SharePoint list view, and then when you want to edit the record or create new records, that's when the Nintex forms comes into the picture. All right, so that was about Power Apps and Index Forms. So a little comparison of what Power Automate and Nintex Workflow. So what are the similarities between the two tools? Same here also, both are browser-based designers, so supports any modern browser. You can design workflows seamlessly in any of the modern browsers. Then both of the workflow tools can connect to n number of external applications and tools. So that brings a lot to the table by using by connecting your systems to different external systems. All right. So what are the differences? Those were the similarities. What are the differences between the two products? So Power Automate, it stores the tasks in SharePoint. So for example, if you're creating approvals in your workflows and workflow is creating tasks for the users like approval tasks, those are stored in CDS, not in SharePoint. CDS that is now called Dataverse. But in Index workflows, if you're doing workflows with SharePoint, it stores the task in the task list, which is in SharePoint. Then same way as Power Apps, Power Automate also uses formulas for the complex logic. So if you want to like do some string operations or if you want to do some condition logic, then you can use formulas. Those are like Excel-like formulas to implement further complex logic in your flows. whereas Nintex is more of a like drag and drop kind of a UI where you have to configure the settings for the actions and the conditions. So it's more of like a click, click, click in UI. Then the performance of the workflows in Power Automate is based on the licensing. So for example, if you are using flows as part of M365 licenses, then the flow performance will be as per the licensing M365 licensing that it supports. Or if you are using like per user Power Automate licenses, then the performance would be a little better as compared to Microsoft 365 licensing that includes Power Automate. So performance based on what license the user has. And in Index workflows, the performance is based on the SharePoint workflow engine. So it uses SharePoint workflow engine. So the performance is solely based on the SharePoint workflow engine. All right, so that was a little quick overview of both of the platforms, both of the tools for developing workflows and forms. Now I'll share the lessons learned during the migration that we did from Nintex on-prem to SharePoint Online for using Power Automate and Power Apps. All right. So first, the lesson learned for Power Apps. So, like when we were like in the initial phase of thinking like whether the Power App platform would be good for this for migrating our applications from Nintex on-prem to Power Apps. So we were like making a decision that there are three kind of forms we can create in Power Apps. So three ways to do it. One is we can do like SharePoint list forms. So user interacts with the SharePoint list, and when they create a new record or edit an existing record, then the user is shown the SharePoint list form. So Power Apps can replace the SharePoint list forms, and those are called customized Power Apps list forms. Then you can do like Canvas app. Canvas app are like standalone applications, so they need not be dependent on the SharePoint list. So user can directly open Canvas app, and the Canvas app can work on its own based on the data sources configured in the Canvas app. And then lastly, the model-driven app, which you can define it is like data driven application. So it's more driven by the data structure of your application. So we were like thinking on what suits our scenario the best. So like SharePoint list forms are mostly used in a scenarios where you have a very simple form. You just need to implement some custom logic, like I would say 10-20% custom logic in your form. Then I would suggest that go for SharePoint list form. And if your data structure is very complex and your application is driven by the data structure, then I would suggest use the model driven app. But in our scenario, we wanted to use SharePoint list as the data source and provide pretty rich forms to the user. So that's why we choose a Canvas app and provide a rich user experience to the users using Canvas app. So, like whenever you create forms in Power App, you need to make a decision like what what you want to um, what you want to create in Power Apps in order to create the forms. Like, do you want to do SharePoint list forms only applicable when your data source is SharePoint, right? And when you have minimal logic in your form. And if you are doing model driven, then you have like entity structure and a lot of relationship between the data, then you would choose model driven app. And Canvas app is pretty it's kind of easy to use and also fit a lot of situations, a lot of scenarios. So you could choose Canvas as well. All right. So that was about choosing what you want to develop using Power Apps. Now we had a scenario in our form where in Nintex on-prem form provides a repeating section control. So for example, you want to add repeating data, allow the user to add repeating data, repeating rows in the form. Then Nintex on-prem provides repeating sections where you configure the columns for the table and then allow the user to input the data in first row and then allow user to add next rows in the table. So that kind of a control we were looking for in Power Apps, that is Canvas apps. but we couldn't find such similar control for repeating table in Canvas app. So we had to create our own repeating table using the controls available in the Power App. So we used a gallery control in conjunction of some custom logic using the formulas in Power Apps. We developed this repeating table where user can like enter the row of data and then click on this plus icon and add new row, and then they can click on this cross icon in order to delete any row. So this is useful for people to know, because for example, if you estimate that your form is gonna take like 7 days, but for example, if you see that there are a lot of repeating tables in your forms, like repeating sections, you want to allow user to add repeating data in your form, then you need to take this into consideration, that you will need to do some custom logic in your forms using the formulas and using the different types of controls in Power Apps, and implement the logic to show the repeating data. So you need to take the time to do that into consideration. So this requires a little significant time to design this, because we had to design it for the new form, and then the edit form, and then also for the display form. So it took a little time for to design this, but it's not like that it's not possible to implement repeating tables. We got through this situation, and we have a fully functional repeating table being created in our Canvas apps. So it is 100% possible to do the repeating tables, and you'll get a lot of help on in the community. Like the people have shared a lot of samples on how to do this. But this was a significant lesson for us, that we learned like how to do repeating tables in Power Apps. And now once doing it in one of the applications, we are pretty now we have pretty it has become pretty easy for us to do in another application. All right, so that was one of the lessons learned. Then we had multiple attachment sections in one of the forms, where, for example, user had like testing documents. They wanted to attach the testing documents, and then they had like business upload documents, and then they wanted to attach the documents here as well. Now, what happens with Power Apps, especially Canvas apps? It has the attachment control, but what it does is it saves the attachment as a list item attachment. Now we also want, as these are two different types of attachments, we also wanted to like save the metadata for this document, saying that this document is a testing document and this document is a business upload document, right? So we can't save the metadata of the file when we save the file as an attachment to the list item. So we wanted to save the files to document library, so that we can attach more metadata to the documents, right? So but what happens is, the by default, the attachment control that is available in Canvas app, it won't save the documents to the document library. So to get around this, what we had to do is we added the attachment control in the Canvas app, and then we like store the data in document library using Power Automate Flow. So whenever an attachment is done, whenever a user attaches the document in this control, we took that event and called a flow from the Power app, which would take the document from the Power app and save it to document library along with its metadata. So we had to get around like this scenario, that okay, first we were like confused on how we would save the metadata of the document in the list item attachment, and then we came across like this scenario that we can save the documents using Power Automate Flow to document library, and then we could call that flow directly from Power Apps. So that seamlessly, when user uploads a document in the application, that document would get saved to the document library using a flow. So this was a good learning for us, that uh, first we were kind of like how to do it and how we'll be able to achieve it or not. We were in a question, But as we got ahead and developed the flow and integrated the flow with our Power App, and it works seamlessly. So when if you have multiple attachment sections, so I just wanted to like show that it is possible to have multiple attachment sections in your Canvas app, and you can save the documents to document library as well from your Canvas app using Flow. All right. Then what's next? So one of the good implementation we did for our Power App is we designed this kind of a branding screen in our Power App, so that all the branding elements in our Power Apps, like colors and the fonts and the buttons and the button colors and the header colors and overall form branding, we configured it from the branding screen. So this screen would be hidden for the actual user, but when you design a Power App, you would see this screen, and then you can go here and say that, okay, I want to change the shade of blue which is used across the application, and if I change it here, then it would get changed elsewhere in all the forms of the Power App. So how this makes our work easy is you configure, for example, you configure all the branding of your Power App manually, and then you may get a feedback from UAT during UAT phase or users that you want to change the colors, you want to change the fonts or something like that. Then you have to go to each control in order to like change the branding again. So that is why this branding screen is useful. So if you get changes, you do only changes in this branding screen, and and then your whole Power App will work based on the branding elements configured here. So one time configuration required for all the controls to use the elements of the branding screen. But then once you have done this, you know you need not to do again. If you don't have this, then if there are any changes in the branding elements, then you have to, for each change, you have to go to each control wherever you want to make the branding changes. But if you have this branding changes, just do each control configuration to use this branding screen. And then next time whenever there is a change, you just do the changes in the branding screen. So it saves a lot of time when you want to do the branding changes in your Power Canvas apps. And also like for better maintenance of your app going forward, right? So there is a really good reference here. We use Apple Dunham. She has a really good video on how to do the branding screens for the Power Apps. We also used references from her video in our project, and also did a little from our investments as well. So you can refer to this video, and then I think you will be all sorted because she has all the details in her video. Right. So those were about Power Apps. Now, talking about Power Apps and Power Automate both, you can configure environments in Power Platform. So I think in the previous session, Nandeep also talked about environments. So you can create different types of environments based on your scenarios in your Power Platform environment. So that, for example, first first use of environments is doing doing application lifecycle management. You have like dev, test, and prod. So developers do the development in the dev environment, the testers, the QA people test it in the QA environment, the users test in the UAT environment, and then actual the app is the production app resides in the production environment. So this is really helpful for application lifecycle management, so that if developers, like if you have one environment and then developers are making change in the same environment, which is a product environment, then it becomes a disaster. Really good in terms of application lifecycle management, as well as you might create environments based on different departments. So it depends on on your requirements on how you want to use environments. So there are different ways of using environments, and you can limit the number of connectors that external connectors that users can use in the environment. So that is also one added advantage. So in terms of in terms of DLP. So there are some licensing requirements related to creating an environment. So whether a user can create environment or not depends on the licensing of the user. So I have included a link on detailed on the details from Microsoft on what are the licensing requirements. All right. So, but creating environments is really useful. We've found it useful in application lifecycle management. All right. Then this learning also applies to Power Apps and Power Automate to use service accounts. So for example, you are creating connections in your Power Apps or Power Automate. By default, that connection will take the connection of the user who's created that app or the flow. So um, what happens is, for example, I'm creating a flow with my user, and then it uses my connections in order to connect to Outlook or in order to connect to SharePoint. So what happens if I leave the organization? Then the flow will have connection errors that the connection used by the flow is the user who has been deactivated, right? So you don't want to end up in a situation where flows are using connections of deactivated users. Or sometimes what happens in my account might not have permissions to do something that the flow wants to do, right? For example, if the flow is deleting data somewhere, but my account does not have permissions, in that case also the flow will not work, right? So you could use service accounts in the connections of the flow or Power Apps, so that the Power Apps or flow is not dependent on a specific user, but it is dependent on a service account, which is not gonna like get deactivated. So for example, I have a screenshot here from the flow, and here it says like my connections, and we have this service account being used as a connection to connect to SharePoint for this action. So one of the good practice you can implement is you can create the Power App or the flow with the service account, and then share that app or the flow with the co-authors, like who actually need to develop that flow or Power App. So by default, the flow or Power App will use the service account. So yeah, so this thing needs to be kept in mind, so that your Power Apps and Flow do not use the accounts of your actual accounts of the users who are authoring the app or the flow. All right, so few Power Automate based lessons. Yeah. So one of the lessons that we learned, like we use approvals in our flows. We use the inbuilt approvals that are provided by Power Automate, and we had some Office 360 M365 groups which we were using for providing the permissions to the user, and also like we had groups for different approvals. We had M365 groups for different approvals. But what we found is that we couldn't directly use the M365 groups inside the assigned to field. So here, this is the Power Automate approval action, which says start and wait for approval. And here in assign to, I cannot assign an approval to a group directly. So what we had to do is like we had to first uh, use the action to get the members of the group, and then create an array of the users, and then provide the users here. So you cannot directly use the groups here in the assign to field. So you, whatever groups you are using, whether you are using Azure AD groups, or whether you are using M365 groups, or whether you are using SharePoint groups, first you need to list the members of the groups, and then create an array of the users, or like semicolon separated values, and then you have to provide in the assign to field. You can't directly use the groups in the assign to field. So that's like a small thing, but adds a value when you are uh, like juggling through on how to do this. And then this shouldn't discourage you to like use the groups. Like it's good to use groups rather than like using the users directly here, right? We don't want to hard code the approvers in the flow, right? So this does not require to hard code the users. You just query the members of the group and then use the members here, right? So that's what this slide says. Then one more thing for approvals, while we were using, the customer were using Nintex on-prem. So Nintex on-prem already has reminders functionality. So whenever you create a task in Nintex on-prem uh, in workflows, then it has a reminders tab where you just need to configure that at what interval the reminder should be sent, and the workflow will take care of it. But where if you are using out of box approvals in Power Automate, it does not have out of box reminder functionality. So you have to implement your own reminder functionality in the flows if you are using approvals, and if you want reminders to be sent to the approvers for that approval, right? So what we had to do is we had to we created a separate flow which had a trigger of recurrence, like a scheduler kind of a thing, which where our flow triggered daily, and then it checked the data like, okay, the approvals are pending for this items, and then based on the date when the approval was sent, the workflow will determine that, okay, the approval is pending, and then the approval was sent 5 days before. Then for this item there is a time to send the reminders, right? So that's how we implemented custom logic inside our flow to determine whether which items need to be uh, which items need approval reminders, and then we send the approval reminders from the separate flow. One of the downside of this approach is whenever the first approval email is sent to the approver, they can do like approve reject from the email itself. So they don't have to go to Power Automate portal to approve. But this reminder would not have the same functionality. So user will need to like here you can in the reminders email you can't include the built-in approval in the email itself the way the approval action does. So you can include a link to the approval that will take user to the Power Automate portal to approve, or user needs to find the first email they got for the from the approval action. So there is a little downside to this approach, but still, if you need reminders, then you need to like send separate emails currently in using the approvals. Then as we were using SharePoint list as our data source, we came across a situation where we wanted to update the data back to the SharePoint list from the flows. So we used REST API instead of the update item action, which is available by default in Power Automate. Now, why we use REST API is because there are certain differences on how you update the data back to SharePoint. You can use the update item actions, which is action which is available in Power Automate out of the box, or you can use send request, HTTP request to SharePoint in order to use REST API to update the data back to SharePoint. So, what are the advantages and disadvantages of both of the approaches? So, update item requires you to provide the data for each required field. So, if you have 5 required fields in your list, whether or not you want to update the data of that 5 required fields, you need to provide the data of those fields when updating the item. So that's the downside of that action. And in REST API, for send HTTP request, you just need to provide the value of the columns which you want to update. So if you want to update only one column, then provide the value of that column only. For update item, it is easy for user to update to use that action as compared to REST API, because for REST API you need to learn a little of syntax on how to build the URL and how to build the payload. But once you get hold of it becomes pretty easy. But for first timers, it is a bit of learning curve. And we also observed, like using update item action, it used to
make the values blank for already existing data in the column. If we did not provide the value of that column in the update item action, so we stick through the REST API approach where we were updating the data of the required columns. So this is the screenshot of both of the approaches. This is REST API, which is send HTTP request to SharePoint, and this is the update item, which is provided out of box in Power Automate. So here I'm providing site address, list name, and the ID which I want to update. And here, if you see, the title column is required. Unless I don't want to update the value of the title column, I have to provide the value of the title column here because it is required. If you see the red asterisk here. So this is the REST API approach where I provide the site address, then method is post because I want to make changes to the SharePoint. Then I have to learn the syntax in order to of the URL, which list I'm updating and which item ID I'm updating. Then the headers, and then the payload here. Here in payload, I'm saying that I would only want to update the column of approved column to true. So here only I'm providing one value, but here I have to provide the value of the title and also the approved column which I want to set. All right. So what's next? So one of the good thing we learned while building Power Automate flows is we had pretty large flows when we were in process of creating Power Automate flows. So what happened is we reached around 300 to 400 actions per flow, and our flow designer became really slow while we were designing the flows because we were reaching the limits on number of actions which is supported per flow. So what we did is we broke down one flow into the multiple flows. That way it supported reusability, right? It's same as a developer. Like if you're a developer, you you support reusability via functions. In same way, you do reusability in flows by by developing different flows. So, for example, I have a common logic to save documents to SharePoint. So I'll do one flow to save documents to SharePoint, and then call that flow from the different flows, right? So that's how we broke one large flow into chunks of flows, and then call one flow from another flow in order to control the size of the flow. So whenever you see that your flow is getting large to 300 and 400 actions, please break it down and then call one flow from another flow. So how you can call one flow from the another flow? You can use HTTP action and trigger to implement that logic to call a parent child flow from a parent flow, but that requires premium connectors. Otherwise, you can also use, if your flows are created inside solutions, you can use called child flow action as well. So that does not require premium connectors. So there is also a reference on how to implement reusable logic across flow. I have written a blog post just for your reference. All right. So one of the limitations that we faced in email approval is Power Automate. When it sends approval to the user can approve or reject directly from the email. But our customer was using Mimecast email security, due to which the actionable messages, like the approval which is sent in email is called actionable messages, and Mimecast was blocking that actionable messages. So the approval should have looked like this, but it looked like this. And whenever user clicked on approve or reject buttons, it took user to the Power Automate portal to approve and reject, and did not allow the users to approve and reject from within the email. So we had to bypass this approval email from Mimecast security, email security and filtering, in order to get the email approval. So here in this UI, if we user is able to directly like click on the approve button, they see the comments box, and then they can provide the comments and submit. This all can be possible from the email itself. So this was also a good learning for us, because we were like we had no clue why this email were looking like this, And then later we figured that Mimecast email security and filtering is blocking the actionable messages. So this is called actionable messages in Outlook. All right. So one more interesting learning that, for example, if you implement approvals in your flow, what happens is approver may or may not provide their decision like immediately, right? They may take months to provide their decisions. So, for example, if approval is gonna last beyond months, what happens is flow a particular flow instance will not run more than 30 days. So if it will like time out within 30 days, and if flow timeouts and it already had a pending approval, then nothing would there would be nothing that can be done in that flow instance. So what you have to do is like you have to implement your custom logic to restart that flow instance. So there is also a good reference online available from Reza Dorani. So he's like done a good video on how to make your flow last beyond 30 days. It's not about last beyond 30 days, but once it timeout, it will start on its own. It will start a new instance on its own, and it will you will have to implement some custom logic in your flow so that flow resumes from the last point uh, where it timed out. So it's more about like using some parallel actions to determine that, okay, using the run after actions you can determine like if the flow has timed out, then restart the flow using the run a child flow action or the HTTP trigger action. All right. So here I have like do until, which had the approval logic, and then we had this two parallel actions. So if everything went well, then the flow would go back to the Power App, and if the flow timed out, then it would run this parallel action to call the child flow, to call this flow again, and it would have custom logic to start from the state it left, from where it left. So you need to store the stage of the workflow somewhere in your data source, like we were storing the status of the flow, like okay, the flow is at this stage. We were storing that in SharePoint list so that whenever the flow restarts, we can determine where the previous instance left. All right. So that were about the lessons learned on Power Apps and Power Automate. Some of the pros, like advantages we considered for this migration are, if your app or a workflow comprises like requirements of your app and workflow comprises under M365 license, then you don't need to like purchase additional licenses. So if you are doing another workflow tool, then you may need to, like if you're doing Nintex Cloud, then you have to purchase the Nintex Cloud licenses. But if your app workflow comprises the requirements of M365 license, then don't need to purchase additional licenses. Then Power Apps has a better modern UI experience than Nintex classic UI. So whenever you migrate, if you're migrating from Nintex on-prem to Nintex Cloud, the form UI would remain classic during the course of migration. So if you want to do modern UI even in Nintex, then you have to redevelop the flow. So that's when you can take a decision whether you want to develop the modern forms in Nintex, or you can also use Power Apps. Then approvals are like integrated within emails and Teams as well. So it allows the user to approve from Teams or emails. Then if the forms and workflows are simple, it just takes a couple of days to spin up the flow and the form. So it's really easy to use Power Automate and Power Apps. So it also has added advantages of Power Virtual Agents and AI Builder, which Nandip talked in the previous session. And also like migrating forms and workflows from Nintex on-prem to Nintex Cloud, it does require you to use some migration tool like say, ShareGate, and there is a lot of post migration work involved, even if you are migrating from Nintex to Nintex, that is on-prem to cloud. All right, some of the cons we considered in this migration is, if flow starts to grow large, then there are a lot of API requests going on in your flows, and it may like yeah, it may not come under the licensing requirement, and it may cross the licensing requirement of M365 and make flow slow or affect the performance of the flow. Flow does not have workflow history, so you need to implement your custom logic to implement workflow history for the auditing purposes. And if your flow runs beyond 30 days, then you need to implement custom logic in your flow to make it last beyond 30 days. And Canvas app, as I mentioned, does not have repeating tables. So build your own custom logic to build the repeating tables. All right. So few points that you need to consider when migrating from any form tools to another form tool. Some non-technical things is user experience. If you're moving from one tool to another tool, there will be user experience changes. So user training will be required. Licensing cost, the licensing cost of old tool and new tool could be different, so you need to consider that. And what the development team is capable of doing, like is the development team already familiar with with the new workflow tools as well, so that there is less learning curve for the development team as well, who is building the forms and who is building the forms. And also the business process, like do you want to develop only one application in this new tool, or there are a lot of applications to be built in a new tool. So decision also depends on that. And some technical things which we have already discussed, like whether your forms has repeating tables, whether your forms requires responsive design, whether your forms are, if you're doing Power Apps, what Power Apps type you would choose while building the forms, and whether you have multiple attachment sections, then how would you do it in Power Apps. So these are some things to be thought of when migrating from one tool to another tool for the forms. In same way, migrating from one tool to another tool for workflows, there would be user experience changes, like the way user approve the tasks in SharePoint workflows or Nintex workflows, and the way user approves the approvals in Power Apps, then that is different. User will require training, same licensing cost, development team, how they are comfortable working with the new tool, and how much do you want to do a one workflow or a multiple workflows using the same tool. Same non-technical, if you're doing Power Automate, you have to do custom logic for workflow history, some custom logic for approvals, some have a custom logic for tasks, and custom logic for developing state machine workflow. So these points you want to consider when migrating from one workflow tool to another. All right, here are few references which will help you based on my session. I also have a blog post on the same session, so you can also refer to that. And thank you for joining. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to help.